State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live. State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live. Stay tuned.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
My heart bleeds to see and hear about our youth dying in senseless circumstances. Every criminal gang today, kidnappers, wicked murderers, arsonists, rapists, thieves, all now claim to be freedom fighters. Criminality cannot be sugar-coated. This must stop. All the stakeholders must now review both the narrative and the action plan. For starters, I totally endorse the recent statement of March 7th this year by the joint body of Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers and Bishops and Archbishops on the peace and conflict resolution, requesting for a tripartite discussion between them, the presidency, and the Southeast governors to deal with the conflicts in the Southeast, especially in relation to Nnamdi Kanu and the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB and the Eastern Security Network. There is no conflict that dialogue in good faith cannot resolve. To the IPOB, ESN, and MASOB, as well as the disparate armed groups in the forest, it is time to interrogate both the purpose and the means of your campaign. To the politicians playing politics with insecurity, you are riding a tiger. The current trajectory is a road to desolation. Let us get around the table and talk. Let the elite in the closet come out and let's debate our future and forge a consensus. The conspiracy of silence by the elite and some of the community leaders must end. If you see something, say something, or do something. Securing Igboland and Nigeria must be our collective responsibility. Let those in the forests come out, surrender your guns, and let's work together to rehabilitate and empower you to contribute positively to peace and prosperity of our homeland. A significant part of our state economy is powered by artisans, keke drivers, vulcanizers, petty traders, bricklayers, women frying akara, and all those who depend on daily toil and sweat. Every day there is a sit at home. These poor masses lose an estimated 19.6 billion in terms of lost income in Anambra State alone. Due to the protracted breakdown of law and order, businesses are relocating outside Igboland, and there is growing unemployment, and traders who used to come to shop in Onitsha, Aba, etc., are going elsewhere. Who is losing? By forcing our children, the future of Igboland, to stay at home instead of being in school, while even the critically sick people, including pregnant women, cannot go to hospital on the days you declare sit at home, we are harming our future. I hereby challenge any of the disparate groups that claim that it is not part of the senseless killings and kidnappings to step out and show leadership by joining hands with us to do something about it. If you love our homeland, there is no place for bloodshed. Our Lord Jesus Christ admonished us in Matthew 26, verse 52, quote, "Put your sword back in its sheath, for all who live by the sword will die by the sword." In the traditional religion, the land places a curse upon those who spill the blood of the innocent. For me, ladies and gentlemen, on the mind, this issue is very personal to me and a very emotional one. My mother, Mbwafo, died during the Civil War. Her last born, Chukwuemeka, died during the war. My father bore a bullet inside of him for many years. My elder brother at 16 was in the boys' company, such that myself, the second, at 8, I became the man of the house with all the men at the war front. My uncles, cousins, etc., died during the war. This is 2022, and there are certainly far better ways to protest than shedding the blood of the innocent or resorting to criminality. This is why I call on all of us today to join hands with me to execute the real agenda, a livable and prosperous homeland of opportunities and jobs for our youth while maximizing the benefits of a united Nigeria, Africa. With Ohanese's estimate that some 11.6 million Igbos live in the north and over 7 million in Lagos state alone, and over 70% of our non-land assets scattered all over Nigeria and the world, we need Nigeria and Nigeria needs us. We need Africa and the world, and they also need us. Yes, we have had every genuine agitation for fairness, justice, equity, and equality in the Nigerian Federation. No, we refuse to turn our homeland into a crime scene and all manner of criminality. No group has ever succeeded in any struggle in history by turning the sword against themselves. I promise to work hard with other governors and leaders in the Southeast and others to take your agitations to the table of all Nigeria, and we hope to bargain for a win-win solution for all Nigeria. With good faith and hard work by all parties, I am convinced that justice, peace, and order will return to Anambra State and the Southeast within the shortest possible time.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Their tactics is that they try to identify grievances of people in a particular area. If it is Imo State and probably there are some IPOB people who are not happy, they hire hoodlums from outside Imo State. They bring them in pretending to be IPOB, and they commit this crime and they they go away. So it is not about IPOB. Yes, we agree. We have aggrieved IPOB members, but I can tell you, those who are doing this destruction, most of them were brought from outside Imo State.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
It's very evident that this is not just an attack. When you attack institutions of law and order and law enforcement, it's evident that it's not an attack on just those institutions. It's an attack on the welfare and the well-being of the people, especially when you free prisoners and persons who may be dangerous to the community, dangerous to the people. When such a thing happens, it's an attack on the people themselves, which is why this is particularly atrocious and condemnable.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
In respect of political developments, I have kept a close watch on the ongoing debate about restructuring in court. No human law or edifice is perfect. Whatever structure we develop must periodically be perfected according to changing circumstances and the country's socio-economic developments. We Nigerians can be very impatient and want to improve our conditions faster than may be possible, considering our resources and capabilities. When all the aggregates of nationwide opinions are considered, my firm view is that our problems are more to do with process than structure. We tried the parliamentary system. We jettisoned it. Now there are shrill cries for a return to the parliamentary structure. In older democracies, these systems took centuries to evolve. So we cannot expect a copied system to fit neatly our purposes. We must give a long period of trial and improvement before the system we have adopted is anywhere near fit for the purpose. However, there is a strong case for a closer look at the cost of government and for the public services long used to extravagance, waste, and corruption to change for the better. I assure you that government is ever receptive to ideas which will improve governance and contribute to the country's peace and stability.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Nigerians are robust and lively in discussing their affairs. But I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far. In 2003, after I joined partisan politics, the late Chief Emeka Ojukwu came and stayed as my guest in my hometown, Daura. Over 2 days, we discussed in great depth till late into the night and analyzed the problems of Nigeria. We both came to the conclusion that the country must remain one and united. Nigerians' unity is settled and not negotiable. We shall not allow irresponsible elements to start trouble, and when things get bad, they run away and saddle others with the responsibility of bringing back order, if necessary, with their blood. Every Nigerian has the right to live and pursue his business anywhere in Nigeria without let or hindrance. I believe the very vast majority of Nigerians share this view. This is not to deny that there are legitimate concerns. Every group has a grievance, but the beauty and attraction of a federation is that it allows different groups to air their grievances and work out a mode of coexistence. The National Assembly and the National Council of States are the legitimate and appropriate bodies for national discourse. The national consensus is that it is better to live together than to live apart.
Hello. You've heard different voices. It started with the inaugural address of Charles Soludo as the governor of Anambra State You heard the voice of Hope Uzodimma, the governor of Imo State. You heard the voice of Yemi Osinbajo, a former vice president of Nigeria. And the last voice you heard is that of Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria's president from 2015 to 2023. Now, you are hearing my voice. In human affairs, there is a truth so universal that it has been written in the blood of every civilization that has ever risen and fallen, that the human heart, when pressed too tightly by the fist of oppression, does not break, but hardens. And in its hardening, it becomes a weapon. This is the character of power. The irony that the state, in its desperate attempt to preserve itself through force, sows the very seeds of its own undoing. For every man who is humiliated dreams of dignity. Every woman who is silenced dreams of a voice. Every child who is denied the beauty of life dreams of a feast. And every people who are marginalized dream of a nation. The dream, once planted in the fertile soil of grievance, grows roots that no army can uproot, and branches that no law can contain. It is the nature of the oppressed to resist, not because they hate their oppressors, though they often do, but because they love life. And the life they love is not the life they've been given, but the life they have imagined, the life that glimmers on the land of their imagination. Welcome to this side of time. We go again tonight. We started yesterday. At some point, due to technical issues, there was a long break. I only returned to round off. Tonight, we will go deeper. But remember, yesterday night, we made the point that to understand the indigenous people of Biafra and the violence that has come to define much of contemporary Igboland, one must first abandon the temptation to reduce the conflict to a separatist rebellion versus state counter-insurgency. At the moment, the politicians are busy with elections. But the IPOB question is so fundamental, more fundamental than periodic election. The Biafran question flows in the blood. It is not periodic. It is a constant. As Nigerians busy themselves discussing the elections that don't change their situations, elections that compound their fates over time, we must not forget the fundamental issues that have brought us to this point. Yesterday we made the point that the group known as IPOB began its life not with guns, but with megaphones, mobilizing the Igbo diaspora around the issues of marginalization. And when we talk about the issues of marginalization, we talk about issues that have festered since the end of the Nigerian Civil War in 1970. At what point did the Igbo nation lose the heart of Nigeria? I will raise as many questions as possible. I will try to answer some, and you will help me to answer some. Have you listened to my interview with Chuks Ilegbunam, the author of the book Ironsi? I will advise you to listen to that interview. It's on my YouTube channel. There is a lot to learn from that interview. Igbos dominated the officer corps of the Nigerian army before the first coup. Because they dominated the officer corps, it was easy for them to mobilize to launch the first coup. And from the book written by Adewale Ademoyega, one of the majors that planned the coup and executed it, it was not an Igbo coup. It's just a coincidence that majority of the majors were Igbos, and because Igbos dominated the officer corps. If they did, how did the Igbo lose Nigeria within a twinkle of an eye? If you read Ironsi, written by Chuks Ilegbunam, the North was not comfortable with Ironsi becoming the GOC of the Nigerian army when the British were ready to leave. Somehow, Azikiwe convinced them, and Ironsi became the GOC of the Nigerian army. When the January coup failed, Ironsi became the first military head of state of Nigeria. How did Ironsi lose his position as the head of state? Was he lackadaisical? Why did Nnamdi Azikiwe refuse to be part of the discussion on the insertion of a clause on secession in the Constitution? What were his reasons, even when Awolowo and Ahmadu Bello agreed that Nigeria might not work, so the regions should have the option to break away? Awo agreed. Ahmadu Bello agreed. Zik insisted on one Nigeria, come rain or shine. What did he see? The question of Biafra that IPOB defends, was it a product of pre-independence agitations, or it became a product of the war. At what point did Ndi become uncomfortable with Nigeria? You will help me answer the questions. Yesterday night, we looked at the ideology that defines IPOB. You would do well to listen to that edition. It's on this page. We raised the question, is IPOB a spiritual movement? We looked at the term redemptive separatism that transforms the political struggle into a sacred quest, with Nnamdi Kanu casting himself as a modern-day Moses, a figure who received a divine call to liberate his people from a state that is not only politically oppressive, but spiritually alien. If on Aburi we stand, then is there a need for Biafra? If on Aburi we stand, is there a need for Biafra after the war? On Aburi we stand is either you give us Aburi or there will be Biafra. Ojukwu did not get Aburi, he declared Biafra. So, if Nigeria gives Ndi Aburi, will IPOB still talk about Biafra? The goal of IPOB is not merely the creation of a secular nation state, but the establishment of a Biafran Jewish state. And I raised some questions. Why Jewish? And I got some answers. Come. Having given a historical overview of the conception and ideals of IPOB, I want to ask a question. Because our research is saying that the origins of the indigenous people of Biafra is a story of ideological evolution. It emerged from a far more measured and legally oriented vision. Has that changed? That brings us to the name Emeka Emekesiri. I hope I got that. We learned is the man who first conceived the ideals of IPOB. Emeka Emekesiri, a figure whose name has been largely overshadowed by the bold leadership of Nnamdi Kanu, whose fundamental role in the movement's history remains essential to understanding IPOB's trajectory. We learned that it was Emekesiri who in 2012 formally established the indigenous people of Biafra, envisioning it as a civil advocacy group that would pursue the dream of Biafran self-determination through the instruments of law and political engagement. We learned that his initial strategy was one of cautious optimism, a belief that the grievance of the Biafran people could be addressed within the framework of the Nigerian state, perhaps through the pursuit of a legal case for self-determination before Nigerian courts or through advocacy for a confederal arrangement that would grant the Southeast greater autonomy while maintaining the broader unity of the Nigerian state. Does that speak of the Aburi Accord? This vision, however, was not to endure. Emekesiri's departure from the leadership of IPOB marked a turning point in the movement's history. Do you agree? For it was under the leadership of Nnamdi Kanu that the group underwent a radical transformation. Where Emekesiri had sought to work within the system, Kanu sought to challenge the very legitimacy of that system, infusing the Biafran cause with a potent mix of religious nationalism, diaspora mobilization, and increasingly militant rhetoric. We've talked about the establishment of Radio Biafra, the framing of Biafra as one of the lost tribes of Israel, and the eventual creation of the Eastern Security Network all reflected a shift away from the initial legalistic approach towards a more confrontational posture that would ultimately place IPOB on a collision course with the Nigerian state. What do you think? Okay. A caller made a very sound argument on yesterday's show. I've listened to it again. We've cut it out and we have placed this in the archive because the points are solid. And his argument stems from the points I'm about to make. We had written, introducing part 1 of the show yesterday, saying that the formation of IPOB is not an isolated event, but a culmination of historical trauma, ideological invention, state failure, and the power of an idea that cannot be destroyed on the battlefield. We also make the point that it is the evidence of the fragile nature of the Nigerian Union and the consequence of our people's sense of injustice. We go on to state that for years, IPOB operated within the bounds of advocacy, but the emergence of its militant wing, the Eastern Security Network, around 2020 marked a decisive turning point, transforming a political agitation into an armed confrontation that would permanently alter the security landscape of the region. And the caller, a member of IPOB, gave it a solid interpretation, defending the ideals of IPOB. It's a telephone intervention we intend to replay at some point. Not just him. We've listened carefully to solid interventions by those who believe in the ideals of IPOB. Solid interventions on the show, and we hope to listen to more tonight. Let's advance the analysis. The catalyst for IPOB's transformation, that is, if you agree that the ideals of IPOB have become more aggressive and militant in nature. To be militant in nature is not necessarily to be gun blazing. Do you agree that Nnamdi Kanu was full of militant rhetoric? If his argument were militant in nature, can it be said that IPOB is militant? A caller also made a point about Mandela and the ANC, and I'm stating that the ANC in South Africa had a militant wing, and the ANC hasn't denied that. That at some point in the struggle, they needed a militant wing because they were being killed on the street by the apartheid government, and they needed to fight back. Can a separatist movement take on a state without having a militant wing? Is that realistic? Can a separatist movement take on a state without a militant wing? Is the reality not militant wing being part of advocacy? Is there anywhere in the world where a separatist movement does not have a militant wing? So why does IPOB members say that it's not a militant wing, but just a wing to fight headsmen? Should I accept that argument? You will help me answer. See, a violence between farming communities and nomadic Fulani herders escalated across the Middle Belt and into the southeast. Many Igbo communities came to view the Nigerian state as either unwilling or incapable of protecting them from terrorist herdsmen. In this vacuum of state insecurity, the Eastern Security Network, ESN, presented itself not as a revolutionary army bent on conquest, but as a neighborhood watch on an epic scale, a force of last resort meant to shield villages from attacks that seemed to arrive with troubling regularity. This framing by IPOB, whether entirely accurate or not, proved remarkably effective in winning the sympathy of ordinary citizens who had grown weary of waiting for federal intervention that never seemed to materialize. Yet the Nigerian government, viewing the emergence of any armed group within its borders as an existential threat, responded with overwhelming force, designating IPOB as a terrorist organization and launching military operations with names like Operation Python Dance, which were intended to crush the insurgency in its infancy. So what does this do? These crackdowns, marred by credible allegations of extrajudicial killings, mass arbitrary detention, and the destruction of property, had the perverse effect of validating IPOB's central narrative that the Nigerian state was indeed an occupying force indifferent to Igbo suffering. The violence that has since engulfed the region, however, cannot be attributed solely to the clash between the state and IPOB. There is a shadowy and far more ambiguous phenomenon that has emerged in the form of unknown gunmen. Who are the unknown gunmen? It's a nebulous term, right? A term that has come to signify an array of violent acts, the assassination of local politicians, the torching of police stations, the ambush of military convoys, and the kidnapping of citizens for ransom. The government has been quick to pin every one of these incidents on IPOB, but the group has consistently and vehemently denied responsibility for many of them, leading analysts to suspect that a significant portion of the violence is being perpetrated by criminal gangs who have found in the political chaos a convenient cloak for their activities. Soludo made mention of that in his first inauguration address in 2022. So analysts are saying that these opportunists have no interest in Biafran independence. They are interested in money, in settling personal scores, in carving out fiefdoms of impunity where the law no longer holds sway. So who is Simon Ekpa? Is he a member of IPOB? Have you listened to his videos giving orders? Or he leads a breakaway faction of IPOB? So when we talk about these gunmen, when we look at their actions, can we say that their actions furthers the ideals of IPOB by taking on the state? No doubt, their actions have further inflamed the crisis, making it nearly impossible for the state to distinguish between political insurgents and criminals, and in turn, for the local population to differentiate between legitimate security operations and state-sponsored terror. The human cost of this multi-layered conflict is most felt in the economic paralysis that has descended upon Igboland, epitomized by the Monday sit-at-home order, a directive enforced by IPOB to pressure the government into releasing Nnamdi Kanu and acceding to their demands. What began as a symbolic act of civil disobedience evolved into a coercive and often weathered ritual, with enforcers punishing those who dared to defy the order by opening their shops or sending their children to school. What began as a symbolic act of civil disobedience evolved into a coercive and often a leathered ritual, with enforcers punishing those who dare to defy the order. So the result is a region that effectively shut down for one day every week. A rhythm of stagnation that has driven away investors, destroyed businesses, and deepened the already alarming rate of youth unemployment that feared the very desperation driving young men into the arms of armed groups. The irony is bitter. Some are saying a movement that claims to fight for the liberation of the Igbo people is, through its enforcement mechanism, choking the economic lifeblood of the very communities it purports to defend, creating internal fissures between those who support the struggle and those who simply wish to survive and feed their families. But I thought, no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. Is that not part of the struggle? No pain, no pain, no gain, no gain. At some point, I wanted to know what was going on in Igboland. I decided to move in. First, I toured Owerri, Umuahia, and Onitsha. But I wanted to see the core of Igboland, the heart of the land. I was with my driver. I didn't even know the corners, but I was using the map, Google Map. At some point, I moved from Okigwe, moved in. I moved into the villages. I saw deserted villages at some point. Went to Ihiala. Drove through Ozobolo. I wanted to see the core of Igboland and feel the pain. I feel the pain of the war. I was not born before the war, but it's like I fought the war. Because I wanted to see myself in the war, fighting the war. So the only way I could feel that war was not to read. I've read a lot of works on the war. Since my father fought in the war, for the 3 years the war lasted, I kept telling him, give me all your experiences of the war. What did you eat when there was no food? The bullets that penetrated your body? How did it happen? How was the gun fired? The man has consistently told me the story of the war, that I have inherited his experience of the war. Having inherited my father's experience of fighting the war on the Biafran side, I can say that I fought the war. So going into Igbo villages was to feel the impact of the war after more than 50 years. I have seen war. I saw the poverty of Igboland in the midst of mansions in villages, including my village. I have gone to Ohafia. At the point, there was a base in an Ohafia village. The Amangu axis. Unknown gunmen occupied the villages, and even villagers ran away. I could not put it together. If you are fighting for me, why should I run away? Recently, I wanted to go home. Okay. You can call the first number scrolling on the screen. Let's start the conversation. I have raised questions. The first number on the screen, that is 080-309-18449. That's the number to call. It is the Igbo question. It is the IPOB question. The war. I was reading Maribu this afternoon. The Nigerian Revolution and the Biafran War by Alexander Madibo. Have you read this book? He was the commander of the Biafran army. That is after Ojukwu sacked Hilary Njoku. Madibo took over. If you read this book, you feel the war. I recommend this book to you. Hello.
Yeah, hello. I'm Marcio Below. Good evening from here.
I greet you.
Yes, thank you very much. I said, let me call early today, and hopefully as that network will not also take us out again today. And I want to thank you for the wonderful work you are doing. And you have raised quite a lot of very interesting questions, and they are quite numerous, but I will try to touch on as much as I can within the given opportunity now. So, Master Below, first of all, the concept of no pain, no gain. I'll just be taking them quickly because of time, so that I will not waste time. The concept of no pain, no gain, as far as the IPOB-led Biafran agitation is concerned, really is far from the picture that I would say you have painted thus far, and which under which the criminal elements, all right, especially because as far as I am concerned, as far as I can see, the bulk of the criminality that has dotted the region under the cover of the Biafran agitation are essentially government propelled, whether directly or most times indirectly. So the idea that people can hide behind the concept of no pain, no gain to justify the manner of indiscriminate violence that criminal gangs and infiltrators have levied on our region is unacceptable, and that does not in any way align with the philosophy and the modus of operation of IPOB. So that's on that. And of course, that also tallies into the point you were just making about the unknown gunmen phenomenon, especially you were talking about the sit-at-home enforcement. So I think it's important that we also make that verification below. I don't know how much you've actually researched. Yesterday I was requesting that you actually research deeper into what IPOB represents, all right? Because if you did so, you would have, I'm sure you would have discovered that IPOB officially and formally suspended the Monday sit-at-home that it instituted in 2021. That announced sit-at-home, which was a civil disobedience measure and was for a very specific purpose, all right? And that action was equally suspended way back in August of 2021, precisely by August 14th of 2021. The evidence to it is actually in the public domain if you just take some time to research. So, and to also clarify, Marcy, that the sit-at-home that IPOB instituted in 2021 was not for the federal government, was not presented as for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, nor was it for the purpose of actualizing the Biafran cause. No. It was very specific, and the point for which it was instituted was to pressure the Nigerian government to basically provide a proof of life that the Mazi Nnamdi Kanu that they claim was in their custody was indeed a living man, and to also grant access to his lawyers. And consequently, the moment contact was established by the lawyers, it was called off. And I repeat, the evidence are in the public domain. That's on that. So I think you will again have to reassess your submission on that front. And also needing a reassessment of your submission on that as well, Marcel below, is your take on the sequence you presented. You try to tie in the Operation Python dance exercises 1, 2, and also the tagging of IPOB or the designation of IPOB by the Nigerian government as a terrorist organization. Your presentation erroneously, I have to stress, erroneously tied it to the formation and activities of the Eastern Security Network, ESN, which could not be further from the truth. For the record's purposes, Nigerian government falsely tagged, in fact, carried out Operation Python dance first in 2016 and then in 2017, September precisely, and also designated IPOB as a terrorist organization falsely in 2017. Now, the Eastern Security Network was set up in 2020, December. So you can confirm that it was way over 3 years of a wrongful proscription and, a brutal crackdown on a very peaceful and civil movement before ESN was even set up. So I think you really need to recouch that particular submission, Marcel below, so that the records can be put very straight. Now, again, I think there's quite a lot too. I think yesterday we also mentioned it's not proper that the Biafra that IPOB is championing is intended by any stretch of the word to be a Jewish state. That again is incorrect. IPOB has, even while Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was broadcasting, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu never presented his own idea of Biafra as something that will be a Jewish state. Nor does that exist anywhere, either in the writings or in the modus of operation of IPOB or in its messaging. There is nowhere around the Biafran agitation championed by IPOB where it is presented as a Jewish centric or whatever that is going to be. In fact, not even on any kind of, organized religion in that sense. We are the Biafran people. I think we actually mentioned it yesterday that we are conscious of who we are enough not to go about trying to leech on to what we do not have any business with. And then you asked if on Aburi Accord, if on Aburi we stand, then why Biafra? Again, I will have to also say that eternal leader within the confines of his knowledge and the exigencies of his time, he did what was best for the Biafran people. In the same vein, IPOB, led by its leadership, the Directorate of State, and the entire membership, global membership of IPOB, I think we are also human enough, and we have also taken into consideration the leadership is very much aware of the current realities that face us as a people to be able to make the correct decision. And that means we cannot, in all honesty today, in my own estimation, for example, we do not need to be bound by a comment such as saying Aburi, because after all, if events, and rightfully so in my own reasoning, that events have way overtaken whatever was agreed on Aburi, which essentially they are brandishing today as restructuring, as regionalism, as true federalism, all of those, as far as my eyes can see, and even giving Mazio below what you have also actually presented a few weeks ago, talking about the actual international dimension to what these Maridin invaders are doing, you will also agree with me that no amount of semi-autonomy or regionalism in Nigeria can guarantee the actual enduring safety of the different nations that are trapped in Nigeria. That would just be an errand in futility, if I can put it that way. So we are at liberty to reassess that position, and on Aburi Accord, for me, does not cut it, or regionalism or autonomy, whatever, within the Nigerian umbrella does not cut it, because we have discovered that the real threat to our lives is the Nigerian umbrella itself. Not necessarily what they classify. Oh, okay, yes, I know I've taken a lot of time, so maybe I wanted to also mention about the Mekesiri perspective.
Okay, round off with that.
Oh, okay. All right. So, yes. So, thank you very much. Now, the Emeka Siri, of course, his own vision more or less also ties into the on Aburi situation, or talking about having whatever well-structured, well-run Nigerian state, or kind of suffrage or internal or what you call local sovereignty within the Nigerian enclave, versus the IPOB, what I would call the Mazi Nnamdi Kanu IPOB era. All right, the difference, unlike what you actually couch it to be, it's not in whether it is now more violent oriented or otherwise. No, the difference is what I just laid out in responding to the Aburi. The difference is Emeka Siri's own vision probably was more aligned with the Aburi, we stand mantra, whereas the MNK IPOB led agitation sees our long-term survival and redemption more in an entirely liberated, free, sovereign, and independent, outright independent Biafra.
Thank
okay,
you.
So I think that is what I will anchor there for now. Hopefully, I can get the chance again to come in sometime later. Thank you very much.
Please
for
introduce yourself well, because your contribution.
Okay.
I want to play your contribution someday, so I want to introduce you well before I play it.
Okay. So my name is Ogene Ochikume. Ogene Ochikume. I am an Urobo Biafran, and I am from the place they call Delta State. I am Urobo, but I'm a proud Biafran.
Thank you.
Ogene Ochikume is my name. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the line is open. He spoke for 12 minutes. That's long. That's long. With the length of that contribution, we won't be able to take a lot of calls. So can we try to limit our contributions to 5 minutes, please? Hello. Hello. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Your voice is faint. If you're not loud enough. I also advise, do not make this contribution wearing hands-free. Don't use hands-free. Hands-free does not allow your voice to ring out. Just speak into your phone so that we can hear you clearly. Good audio quality. Hello.
Hello? Yes, is it better now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, my name is Margot Bassi, and good evening to you, Margot below.
I greet you.
I will try to be as brief as possible, even from what you said. You raised so many important questions. Allow me to say that today I see more balanced, at least a little bit more than yesterday. More balanced questions and narrative and some premises. So I'd like to acknowledge that. I want to say something concerning the honorable withstand and how you framed it. I have often heard people frame the honorable withstand in quote as some sort of no candy tantrum, reaction from Dim. Or it's because they didn't get what they want in Aburi, that is why they declared Biafra. I think that is unfair and very simplistic explanation of that. There are a lot of things that had happened that even led to the Aburi conversation in the first place, to even come to the accord itself. And one of the things that happened was the deliberately carved narrative that seeks to present the January 15th coup as an Igbo coup, which yourself and many other people who are objective admitted that it was not an Igbo coup. And the people who coined that narrative knew very well it wasn't an Igbo coup, yet they did. So when you ask what happened to the Igbos or the Biafrans in Nigeria, at a point they dominated the officers' corps. Yes, that's one of the things that happened. What you cannot have that kind of narrative against the people and expect them to still be there or dominate as they used to, or be in large numbers. That led to the next step of a pogrom that happened in the north. Our people were beheaded. Pregnant women were opened up, and even their child unalived. And to add salt to injury, the dead bodies of headless people were packed in a train bound for the east and transported to our people. Beside the pogrom, the Nigerian government also proved that they have lacked the capacity, or they have no interest in protecting Biafrans. Abreu Accord, therefore, become the last hope of the reorganization of the power structure to ensure that at least Biafrans protect their own people, and the North and the West protect their own people. Hence, as part of the accord, it was agreed that officers that are from the North will return to the North, and officers that are from the East will return to the East, and everyone will protect his own place, because there was no longer trust. And when that agreement was reached, and everyone returned home, hoping that it would be implemented as it was, and then the players who have the capacity to implement that renege on that agreement, there is no other option to ensure the protection of the people than to ensure that the secondary option of putting the security of the people in the hands of the people, which can only come through having their own nation, will have to be, taken. Therefore, the declaration of Biafra, after so many steps that sought for the consent of the people, was taken, Biafra was declared. So the declaration of Biafra is not just because we went for a Abreu Accord and they didn't give us, like a child who was denied a candy. No. There were other factors that make the declaration of Biafra the only viable option. Now, the same case when the Fulanis and their herdsmen were unaliving our people, there was zero interest from the state to protect the people. I can't speak for the people of the Middle Belt, but we see similar cases there. The only option we have is to make sure that we set up a security artery that we can trust to protect our people. And even if you don't know, from the last broadcast of our head of Director of State, ESN have at least 50,000 men. If we want to blame the insecurity in the Biafran region on ESN, imagine what 50,000 men can do if they were lawless or if they were the cause of insecurity. And no wonder Hope Uzodinma, a chief security officer of his own state, which I believe is your state, clearly stated that the insecurity in Olo and other part of Imo State is not caused by the IPOB, rather by politicians. So these are the questions. And lastly, Nnamdi Azikiwe, you said, refuse to allow the secession clause to be added to the Constitution. Well, I can't say for sure his reasons, but does that not prove to you that the Biafrans, or the Igbos, as some may like to refer to it, were actually more patriotic and believed more in Nigeria than other tribes or that other parts of the country, until we were shown that our life was worth nothing during the pogrom and during the war? Don't you think so? That actually is a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, my name is Benga. I'm calling from Limerick in Ireland. Yeah, it's good to join your class this evening again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a little observation, please. Because first, the time I know everybody is in different time across the world, but somebody talking for like 10, 12, 15 minutes. At times it gets a bit boring. And what we, the audience, actually want to, I understand that you're trying to give everybody opportunity to, say their views, but I think 3, 4, 5 minutes max should be fine. Somebody talking for 10, 15 minutes, we actually want to listen to, you, Edmond Obilo. So if somebody call in, maximum 5 minutes, you understand, that's aside. And I called yesterday, and what I said, it still remains that until the Igbos, the Biafran people, see themselves as part of Nigeria. See, no government is going to give you free. Nigeria has really evolved. The last caller was talking about Opus Odima. One of the most powerful governors in Nigeria as of today is Opus Odima. He's one of, if not the closest governor to the president. You have Eastern Igbo people at the cabinet of the presidency. So these people are already entrenched. Like, okay, imagine, I'm from Ibadan. Imagine the Igbos we have in Queen Cinema, in Mokola, all those places. Even if you say Nigeria should break today, how do we have intermarriage? There are a lot of things that has happened. So people need to actually, it's not as if it's not possible for Biafrans to go and everybody if they want to this and that. You understand? But we actually need to reason beyond that. There is strength and more we can do if we are together. First, I support the fact that we can renegotiate our coexistence, which I support that. We can renegotiate it. But the minds, because I've been hearing the program for how many hours now, majorly what I'm hearing from the Igbo people is like, they just want their Biafra, they want to, nobody is going to just allow you to look at what is happening in Spain, in Catalonia. What's the name of the place now? They have been fighting for freedom and all for how many years? Nobody is going to no country will just open its eyes, and most especially when you want to do it through a violence means, you find it very, very difficult. So I believe our people should try to evolve in their thinking, in their way of doing things. Gathering all these people, you say the diaspora, IPOB, and this and this and this, all those things, you need to evolve. You need to evolve around it. The world has actually moved forward. I think there is more we can do together as a country. Of course, we can renegotiate our coexistence. You understand? But saying that you want to break up now, okay, if out of the 3 major tribes in Nigeria now, the most mobilized tribe among the 3 of us, there's hardly any village you get to in Nigeria that no matter how remote that village is, that you not found an Igbo man there. So there are some Igbos that they have not even been to their own hometown before. They are just being Igbo just by name and by language. Some of them have not even stepped to their state before. That they are maybe in the north.
Maybe you was doing all of the things. So I'll say, where will I start
that
from
is just
here?
my own take. We
And
should
see
evolve
move to
around
another
this.
Let me go to
The
the one where the OT will be.
renegotiate
So
our
that's how I
coexistence.
chose ABU. I went in there
As I said,
and
power
did
is
my
not
best.
given
And I thank God that went on very well. Came out
the
one
rest
of
of
the
the
best
country will
students.
just give them
And
presidents
things
because
worked out
they are
well.
Igbo
But
people, because of what
in
happened in
between,
Biafra,
and that's the
this
Nigeria
and
we
this.
have, there were a lot of crises going on at the time. We got into IBU September 1966. I remember that day.
That was the period of political crisis in
We had
Nigeria.
all the crisis in Nigeria, that time. 10 days later, September 29, there was a lot of rioting on the university campus where people were killed. Workers and all that kind of thing. A lot of our colleagues came back to the South because of that.
Thank you.
But I cannot say that. My argument was always saying, so Nigeria will settle. I will go to Ibadan because I want us to listen. I will still come back to Zaria anyway. God will save me. So that's I stayed in ABU throughout the period.
What did you see on the 29th of September?
On the 29th of September,
1966.
Let me start with the night before. We were in the student bus tree.
He saw it.
Bus tree where we were drinking Coke and all that one.
There's
a news item that
comes
up
University.
around 9:30.
I'm talking about Professor
called Labarun Dunia, something like that. But we suddenly noticed after the news that a lot of our colleagues from the north left the bus tree. We used to stay there till about 11, 12. But it was around 9:30. And then we suddenly noticed the place empty.
Schooling at the time.
Many of our colleagues from the north went away. Later on, we don't know how true it is.
To take time.
They had the news that they said.
And see if there are lessons.
ABU was doing all of the things. So I'll say, where will I start from here? And see move to another university. Let me go to the one where the whole thing will be. So that's how I chose ABU. I went in there and did my vet medicine. I thank God I went on very well. Came out one of the best students, and things worked out well. But in between, and that's the Nigeria we have, there were a lot of crises going on at the time. We got into IBU September 1966. I remember that day.
That was the period of political crisis in Nigeria.
We had all the crisis in Nigeria, at that time. 10 days later, September 29, there was a lot of rioting on the university campus where people were killed, workers and all that kind of thing. A lot of our colleagues came back to the South because of that. But I cannot say that. My argument was always saying, so Nigeria will settle. I will go to Ibadan because I was in veterinary school. I will still come back to Zaria anyway. God will save me. And so that's I stayed in ABU throughout the period.
What did you see on the 29th of September?
On the 29th of September,
1966.
Let me start with the night before. We were in the student bus tree where we were drinking Coke and all that one. There's a news item that comes up around 9:30 in the morning called Labarun Dunia or something like that, But we suddenly noticed after the news that a lot of our colleagues from the north left the boat tree. We used to stay there till about 11, 12. But it was around 9:30, 10. And then we suddenly noticed the place emptying. And many of our colleagues from the north went away. Later on, we don't know how true it is, that they had the news that they said some people from the north were killed in Port Harcourt. That was what was the news. And it was soon after that they all began to move out. And the story, I have no confirmation, but I can confirm what I saw. The story was that they went to the village, which was across Samaru village, and kind of instigated some people to retaliate. Because the next morning, when we woke up, the engineering faculty was just being built at that time. Most of the workers were from the south. And so early in the morning, there was shouts and things around 6, when people were being killed, slaughtered, all that kind of thing. We were about to go in for breakfast when the university authorities then took all of us into a big room where there was a glass door. So we were seeing what was going on right outside, in which people were being pursued with cutlass and running after them. A few days after this, we still saw a few dead bodies all over. So there was crisis. And a lot of our people then came back because they were scared about, what could happen to them or this thing. A few of us stayed. It was like...
Why did you stay?
Like I said, I looked at it and I said, I believe that Nigeria problem will be sorted out. So in another 6 months, we sorted out. I'm back in Ibadan. 2 years later, I'm sick back in Zaria. So why didn't I just stay? There was no cogent reason. But I remember the night of that crisis, that night when there was killing. There was a story that they were still coming back to deal with other students who are not from the north. And so that were a lot of our colleagues. They moved, the police came, took them to the police station in Zaria, somewhere not too far from Samaru. But a few of us stayed on, and they were saying that the story was that anybody who was neither Yoruba or not, they were going to deal with them. I remember.
So whether you were Yoruba doesn't matter.
It didn't make a difference.
It was not just about the Igbos.
It wasn't about Igbo alone. There was some kind of quote sympathy for the Yorubas because of Akintola. I mean, these are things, let's say. But of course, the average northerner knows Yoruba with marks. So people of us who grew up in Midwest, who had no marks, there's no way you can prove you're Yoruba. But still, I came to my room and we hung all my Yoruba dresses in my room. The room was like this narrow thing. So I was staying right by the door. The rest were inside. The argument was that if they ask, I would say, they would ask me to speak Yoruba. I would speak Yoruba. I would say all of us are Yoruba. They would see Yoruba clothes hung over that day. But nobody came that day. But that was the story we had. But that's how we stayed. So nothing happened thereafter. But these are the truth of what happened. And why people eventually, some of those who ran back came back to join us in 1969 or thereabout, when it was time to do the clinker. By then Nigeria has settled. So it was like, why run? If God has saved us to this point, He will save us to the end. And that's the reason why I stayed.
So that experience, how did that define your feeling of Nigeria?
Even up to now, it's a bit difficult not to remember that time. It's something ingrained in your memory. Why would they do such a thing? Why will you? Particularly for somebody like me, who started in Yoruba land, went to Bende, Delta, where I had all the love and care. And if not for that initial thing in Zaria, and the rest of my stay in ABU was friendly and decent. So basically, Nigerians, we are not evil, as people tend to say. And I said the point that it's the human being first. It's not whether you are Yoruba or whether you are Igbo or whatever. It is the human being in you that comes out under the cloak of your tribe. Yoruba areas, so let's not begin to make it sound as if people have been living together for all these years. We need to find a way of agreeing amongst ourselves. What is the limit of what you can do and what cannot do in this relationship? Even in husband and wife. Abi, you marry, you still have all the problem, but you reach an agreement. This is how we're going to live our life. The one you don't like, I won't do it. The one I like, we do it. If we get back to that level, Nigeria is and in spite of what I keep repeating, I owe this country more than I can ever pay back. It will be an ungrateful person who will go through my generation and will say, because Nigeria is this now, therefore, we forgot the things of the past.
Nigeria took care of your generation.
Totally.
You got scholarship.
Totally.
To university level.
Mm-hmm. I got a job the following day I came out of university. No, so because I was on federal scholarship and I took the job in Ibadan. VOM, as a veterinarian, I was supposed to work in VOM. VOM, a year that was just asking me to come and take up my job. Until I then got to that, because UI was a federal institution, therefore that was how I managed not to go back to this. So this country was a great country. And it took good governance. I think we must continue to stress that. It was the people at the leadership that this thing. Of course, they had their quarrel, and which also created some problems. Also. But when they were good and working together, this was a great country. This was a great country.
It was very bloody. My mother was coming from Zaria to see me at Kaduna because she heard that they were killing officers and everybody. She was there discussing with some people in the public transport, and they happened to be Ukwane people. So she spoke the language with them. They got to the roadblock. They told everybody to calm down. These two people, husband and wife, were killed. That started my mother's involvement also in the Civil War.
Look at how you wrote it here.
Yeah.
You said on page 27.
Okay.
In the public transport, my mother sat by a couple who were speaking Ukwani, the language of my father, a language spoken by the people of Ndokwa area of today's Niger Delta area.
Okay.
The couple was shocked to see and hear an Ilorin woman with 3 tribal marks speaking Ukwani language fluently. They became friendly and chatted away in a bus in which they were traveling. That again was the power of language for unity, which we have failed to appreciate as a people.
That's right.
You said here, then the bus was stopped at a military roadblock mounted by northern troops between Zaria and Kaduna.
Yes.
During the arrest after the coup. Right in front of my mother, these 2 Igbo look-alike families were dragged aside and shot dead right there. That was happening in Kaduna then.
Yes.
And that is what
between Kaduna and Zaria at the roadblock.
And that has been described as the pogrom.
No, you see, well, you should check the meaning of pogrom. Were they trying to eliminate a whole this language had been used many times depending on who you are talking to about the Civil War. When you use the word pogrom, what about Nzogo group that killed all the northern leaders? Was that a pogrom? In this case, the Hausas couldn't reach the eastern leaders. They just killed traders and passers-by that looked like Igbo.
So is that pogrom?
Many from Calabar, many from Sapele. People, in those days, if you were not speaking Hausa, Igbo or Yoruba, Sapele people, Gwari people, all of them, if you were not speaking Hausa, you were not you are not from the north. If you are not speaking Yoruba, you are not from the west.
You know, your mother got worried.
Yes.
After experiencing that scene.
Yes.
And she came to you.
Yes.
Insisting that you have a mission to achieve.
Yes.
To save your father's people.
That's the way she put it. That's the language she used. To save my father's people. Then Elijah, you're talking about my father's people. Who are they? I've never been to the village. I was born in Ilorin. I followed you and my father, according to you, to Kwale. You people stayed there for 4 years. You were able to speak the language. I cannot speak the language. I was told that I was speaking the language when I was little, but I couldn't speak the language after all, since I stayed in Ilorin and in Abeokuta. I didn't speak the language anymore. So who are these my father's people? That was the problem between myself and my mother. And she insisted she wouldn't take no for an answer.
That you must deliver.
She went to Emir of Ilorin.
Who was in a meeting at that time?
At Kaduna.
And she also...
She wanted to go to Ilorin, as a matter of fact, to meet the Emir. But then, we were told that all the Emirs were holding a meeting at Kaduna with the governor.
Usman
Katsina. So we went to Usman Katsina, who took us to the Emir. The Emir came back to Usman's office, who was the governor of the northern region at the time. And that was how my mother told her story again, that she would like me to say
Okay, I decided to bring you those interviews to take us back so that we'll have a historical perspective. I started with Professor Oyewale Tomori, a former president of Nigerian Academy of Science. And this is Alabi Sama, who fought in the 3rd Marine Commando for the Nigerian side. He's the author of this book, Tragedy of Victory. You must have seen the interview on my YouTube page. If you've not seen it, you can go and watch it. Yes, I'm going to take more calls, but let me make it clear now. I won't allow you to speak for more than 5 minutes so that some persons don't dominate the conversation. Try. I know it's not easy, but you don't need to speak on every point. That is why I'm not even replying some of the points being made, so that others can have their say. I've had my say. Yes, you have your own interpretation. I agree with your interpretation. I have my own interpretation of events. Hello.
Hello.
All right, I'm listening to you.
Good evening, Mr. Obilo. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. I would like to make a little contribution on your program because I am a member of IPOB. Due to the security reason, I may not divulge you my names. As you may know, that a lot of our people are being languished in secret prisons everywhere and military barracks, secret military barracks in Nigeria. Obilo, I want to make my point in the view that I am 52 years old, and I have realized to come into conclusion that the Nigerian entity hates Igbo man with passion. If you can remember, when the IPOB started, IPOB was a very peaceful movement, which was born out of negligence, injustice, and unfairness being meted by our people. Our political elites joined the Abuja said they go to them, if you want to seek for what is rightful for the generality of every common Igbo people, you'll be extracted from the table. But if you want to be joining them in their pursuit to bring the Igbo men down, you come on the table. That is how I summarized it. But if you remember, when IPOB started, it's just a very peaceful movement that is saying, we are not happy because our children, our youths are not being employed properly. We are not happy because there is no federal presence in the whole of Igboland. We are not happy that the resources that will be taken away from our place will be taken to develop Lagos and Abuja, but there is no presence in the whole southeast. What happened? Our leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and the 5 governors of the eastern state have a meeting in Abuja. What was that meeting? Ask them today, what was the demand of Nnamdi Kanu? Is it not to bring a seaport to any of the 5 eastern states, or to make Port Harcourt a viable seaport? Those demands, is it too hard for the government who wants to carry everyone along? The answer is no. What is the demand of Nnamdi Kanu? To make a viable international airport, because our people based on trading. We are self-employed by trading, doing business. To make life easier for us, give us seaport, give us international
airplane within the arena of the Igboland. But after that meeting, what happened? This Operation Python dance. Obilo, I must be honest with you. Operation Python dance is nothing but to kill Igbo youths and Awadi Damazi Nnamdi Kanu because we demand what is rightful. It's quite unfortunate that the architect of the whole thing is late Buhari, who was an anti-Igbo person starting from when he was military head of state in Nigeria. All the killings keep going on. It did not end there after the Operation Python dance. The next thing they did is they contracted Asari Dokubo, and the Fulani militias they have flooded it in the southeast. They start killing people, kidnapping, doing all sorts of evil in order to blackmail IPOB. But I must be honest with you, Obilo. 80% of Igbos know that IPOB has a very good agenda for the generality of the southeast. They know that. There is no amount of blackmail. There is no amount of blackmail the central government Abuja will do in order to change that. Because we know what causes insecurity in the eastern Nigeria throughout the Biafra land.
Thank you.
So, in as much as the federal government of Nigeria continue with these tactics, thinking that they can oppress the demand for Biafra without fairness and justice, because what brought out the Biafra agitation today, what born out of IPOB is lack of fairness and justice to the Easterners. Everybody knows how the war started. Everybody knows how the coup started. The first coup and the counter coup and the pogrom and everything. Nigerian government never ever for one day want to set the record straight. Look at an old man like Gowon who is up to this age, he's still lying to himself.
Thank you.
While the whole evidence is everywhere.
Round off your point.
The reality of what I want to tell you, my brother, is in as much as there is no fairness and justice to our people, the pursuit for Biafra restoration is just the beginning. This is it's an iceberg.
All
it's
right.
just the beginning.
Thank
because
you.
in
Thank
as
you.
much as
Thank you. You have done 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, because I'm also listening keenly, at some point, we keep repeating ourselves. What you have said, you keep saying it again. Yes, sometimes emphasis helps, but so that we can take more contribution. And if you are listening, I will appreciate if you share this broadcast. I want more persons to come into the loop. I want to listen. I want to listen to varied opinions. So what I do here is to throw out some points, perhaps agitate your mind, provoke you, make you think. Just drop it there. And for you to have a comprehensive view of the historical overview, it's also important you go and listen to previous editions, because there are times I'm tempted to repeat what I have said in previous editions, but I'm beginning to say no. I've given a historical account. Remember the first edition that I entitled The Tragedy of Nnamdi Kanu, where I gave the legalistic opinions of the Nigerian state on how IPOB was designated a terrorist organization. I gave a detailed account. So in some analysis, we just pick some of these points, put it together. And if you just conclude on those points, you might be missing the link. So sometimes you take your time and listen to previous editions. Like yesterday, after I came back, I talked about Operation Python Dance. And I'm tempted to repeat it again tonight. But no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into case studies. And I want to focus on the violence of 2021 in Igboland. Remember the topic, IPOB and violence in Igboland. And so far, the callers have made the point that the violence in Igboland cannot be tied to IPOB. That is your narrative. I don't dispute your narrative, but there are other narratives. And I hope we understand that. There are other narratives. You are inside. There's something you see from inside. Others are outside. There is something they see from outside. And that is why conversations like this is important. There are certain persons now listening to those who have introduced themselves as members of IPOB. They are now getting a broader perspective. And I can see somebody sending me a message, oh, so this is what happened. Somebody sent me a message yesterday, these IPOB guys I'm listening to, they sound very intelligent. Are you sure they are members? And I asked the question, so what do you take IPOB members to be? You could see he has an opinion that IPOB members perhaps are riffraffs. But by listening to conversations like this, he said, oh, no, these are scholars I'm listening to. But however, there are also IPOB boys who are in the villages, right? So I'll take this call, then dive into the next phase, then open the lines again. Hello.
By listening to conversations like this.
Hello.
IPOB, good evening from here.
Good evening.
My name's Wanda Juvista Chichi. I am a member of indigenous people of Biafra. Let me quickly answer two questions before I will come to IPOB and violence. You asked, who is Simon Ekpa? And you also asked, who are the unknown gunmen? Mazi, please, I don't know if I am coming out at all.
You're very loud and clear.
Thank you. Simon Ekpa is not a member of IPOB. Rather, he first came to limelight on August 17, 2019, after Ikekwe Madu had a conflict with some members of IPOB during the second annual cultural festival and convention organized by Ndibo in Germany. And that was a New Year festival. After that conflict, so Simon was antagonizing IPOB, compelling IPOB and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to apologize to Ike Ekweremadu, emphasizing on the political status of Ike Ekweremadu, because Simon portrayed himself as a full supporter of one Nigeria and a politician. Surprisingly, after that, after a short time, Simon began to do exposition on Nigeria government's impunity. Simon automatically became an antagonist of Nigeria government. The exposition were so high. He runs live stream and people always come to his program. After a time, between 2019 and 2020, he interviewed Mazi Nnamdi Kanu on his platform, not on IPOB platform, not on Radio Biafra. He interviewed him on his platform, even with Sho Ayoba, the leader of Ambazonia group, who is also in captive now. Now, before Mazi Nnamdi Kanu went for that interview on Simon's platform, IPOB members, most especially the directors of states, wanted to halt Mazi Nnamdi Kanu from attending that interview to Simon's platform, saying that this person that automatically begin to speak for Biafra and against Nigerian government, that it seems something is fishy, that let's understand who this young man is before coming into contact with him. But Mazi Nnamdi Kanu ignored the advice and attended that interview on Simon's platform. Then after that, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu encouraged IPOB members to always go to Simon's platform to listen to some of his expositions, because his exposition seems to be educative then, because it was all about impunity of Nigerian government. Now, after Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped in Kenya and was later brought back to Nigeria, the brothers of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu said that Simon should come to broadcast on Radio Biafra. Before then, Simon was told, before you will do this, you have to become a member of IPOB member. How do you become a member? You have to take an oath to become a member of IPOB. Simon said he's not going to do that. And IPOB decided that somebody who is not a member cannot handle our platform. Before you know it, Simon started running live stream. He started raising men, calling them Biafra Liberation Army, giving them guns. Now, I am now trying to come into IPOB and violence. I am now going down there. Now, Simon, whenever Nigerian military are being killed, Simon will claim that his men did so. And Simon also ran a government called Biafra Government in Exile, which he claimed to be the prime minister. IPOB never had anything like Biafra Government in Exile. And IPOB has nothing like Biafra Liberation Army, because these men, they have the vehicles they use, which you will see the inscription of.
Can you round off your point?
Okay. Now, what I'm trying to bring out here is this. If you check the report of Amnesty International on Southeast conflicts, that report documented alleged abuses committed by both
Hello?
According to that report, Amnesty said that at least 4 people were killed in the Southeast, and these people killed were Biafra activists. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that all the violences that happened in the Southeast between 2021 to 2025 were just attributed to IPOB by the Nigerian states and Nigerian army because they only needed to destroy IPOB. Remember that they started killing IPOB members. All right, thank you.
Thank you. You've done 10 minutes. All right. I wish I could just listen and listen. You know, she's a very good storyteller. And her story, I'm going to look at her story. We're also going to sit down and look at the Samuel Ekpa story. Again, State Affairs is not also just about Biafra, but we take keen interest on Biafra because we look at the national question. It's a script we are working on. We want to look at the Zakibiam massacre that was carried out during the Obasanjo government. It is a national question. The Odi massacre is a national question. That is why we want to build a system to educate, a system where we can also learn. Because for us to educate, we must also be able to learn. To learn is to listen. To learn is to research. To learn is to read. And that is why we created the store udarabooks.com. We have books on Biafra. Every day we are running out of stock on some books. So there are some we don't have anymore because they are now out of print. But for those who are interested in reading about the war, if you go to Udara Books, you will find the book Ojukwu Exile, Diplomacy and Survival by Kanayo Isinulo. I'll play Kanayo's interview on this edition of State Affairs. We also have the book The Nigerian Revolution and the Biafran War by Alexander Madibo. I've already shown you that book. That is this book. This book by Alexander Madibo. This is the new edition. And reprinted by his children. That is why I love that. You know, when children want to keep their parents' legacy, on a good day, this book will no longer be available. For some time, it wasn't available. But the children have reprinted. Have you listened to my interview with Madiebo's son? It's on my YouTube channel. Another book you will find on udarabooks.com is Awo on the Nigerian Civil War. Have you read this book, The Other Side of Biafra, by Tony Amadi? It's an interesting book. Fact and Fiction in the Literature of the Nigerian Civil War by Professor Akachi Adimora Ezigbo. Have you read Sunset at Dawn, a novel of the Biafran War by Chukwuemeka Ike? You should have this book. Your children should read this book. Biafra is a spirit. You cannot shoot it out. It is well documented. People are still writing on Biafra. That's to tell you how intense. And that is why the Nigerian state should take it seriously. Biafra is a mission that the state must take seriously. Have you read the untold story of the Nigerian Biafran War? A chronological reconstruction of the events and circumstances by Dr. Luke Aneke. This book. You see, whenever I travel, I must travel with some Biafran books. I always pay for extra luggage. Just books. I'm not in Nigeria at the moment, but I'm with my books, especially the Biafran books, because I keep studying them. Another book I'm recommending to you is The Man Died by Professor Wole Soyinka. And that is one story I'm going to tell soon. The role of Wole Soyinka in that war. You know, Gowon kept him in prison for almost 2 years because of the role he played in the war. And if you read Kana Ayoye-Sinulo's book, when Ojukwu was in exile, he was always meeting with Soyinka. Because one question I kept asking Kana Ayoye-Sinulo, what was the role of the Yoruba in the Civil War? That is why I am recommending Kana Ayoye-Sinulo's book to you. That Ojukwu returned to Nigeria, those who led the campaign were mostly Yorubas. Have you heard about Kolakpo Ogunsowu? He led the campaign in the newspapers. Ganifa Wemi, Wole Soyinka. So someday, we are going to look at the role of the Yoruba in Biafra. And of course, Awolowo will come in. I have interviewed Major Salau. Major Salau was part of the team that were recruited into the army with Ojukwu. The Ojukwu was recruited as a graduate, so Ojukwu became his senior. The perspectives of the war. Have you read Nzogu by Obasanjo? Some persons are still calling. No, don't call. I'm not going to pick any call now. I will open the line. I can still see calls coming in. I won't pick a call now. Then read Nigeria Biafra Civil War by Achike Udenwa, a former governor of Imo State. He fought in the war. So he gives a first-hand account of the war and events after the war. That's what makes his book super, not just the war. He then analyzed events after the war. Why we struck by Adewale Ademoyiga. It's a classic on the coup. Adewale Ademoyiga. Adewale Ademoyiga was among the first graduates that were recruited into the Nigerian army after the Ojukwu set. Emmanuel Ifajuna was executed during the war. Ojukwu executed him, including Victor Banjo. Have you listened to my interview with Victor Banjo's daughter? It's on my YouTube channel. Why did Ojukwu send Victor Banjo to the Midwest? What did Hilary Njoku tell Ojukwu about that trip? What was the intention? There are different sides to the story. If you read Madebo has his own side to the story. And that is why I tell students and watchers of history, when you are making your argument, be careful. Don't just assume your own argument is the right one. Because I see that when people make argument. It is your own perspective. Because if you read these books, you see different perspectives. Some will read Gowon now and say, no, Gowon has lied. Yes, that is your perspective. It is the Gowon perspective. There's somebody that believes the Gowon perspective. But what researchers would do is to put them together and say, this is what Gowon said. Madiebo said this. Ojukwu said this. So sometimes don't over-insist that your own position is the right position. It might be. But when we talk about the writing of history and autobiographies, people write from their own point of views. Unfortunately, Ojukwu did not give us a comprehensive account of his role in the war. And Gowon has done that. I am reading it. It is his own story. And soon I'll begin to review his book and then begin to compare some of his narrative to other narratives. Like if you read Madiebo will say that Nzogu did not fight for Biafra. That Nzogu did not fight for Biafra. Yes, he was killed during the war, but he wasn't fighting for Biafra. Nzogu didn't like Ojukwu because Ojukwu made his school fail. Ojukwu did not cooperate with Nzogu. If you read this book, that is why I say this book is also a classic. If you read this book, The Last Flight, by Captain August Okwe, at some point, Nzogu has sent men to Ojukwu in Kanu. Nzogu needed money to finish the coup. And Ojukwu was in charge in Kanu. So they needed money. Ojukwu refused. The first set of men that Nzogu sent to Kanu using the Air Force plane, Ojukwu arrested those guys. And the second team that went and didn't even land, August Okwe was one of them. He wrote the story here. And that is one of the reasons researchers are saying it was not an Igbo coup. Because Ojukwu did not cooperate, and Ojukwu is an Igbo man. Madiebo, some will say it was Madiebo that deceived Nzogu. Have you read the story? That Madiebo deceived Nzogu. Okay, he had to come and sweet talk Nzogu, say, Nzogu, leave this coup. Let's allow Ironsi to take over, and then we will work together. And he deceived Nzogu. Nzogu left Kaduna and went to Lagos. Immediately he landed in Lagos. Ironsi arrested him. Madiebo was an Igbo man, and he was not part of the coup. In fact, Igbo men countered the coup. It was Igbo men that countered the coup. But again, some would say they countered the coup, and Igbo men also benefited because Ojukwu, for his role, became the governor of the Eastern region. Ironsi was planning to remove Ojukwu as the governor of the Eastern region before he was killed in Ibadan. Because some persons were feeling that it was not Ojukwu that should be the governor of the Eastern region. It should be Hilary Njoku. And from some of the accounts I have read, if after Ironsi was planning to remove Ojukwu after returning to Lagos from Ibadan, and then posting Hilary Njoku to be the governor of the Eastern region. Different stories. So if you're an Igbo man, you should teach your children the account of the war. And that is why you should read the books of the war. Different accounts. Then you can then make up your mind and say, this is my own position. I will respect it. I've heard people say, we must have Biafra. And I have sympathy for them. We must have Biafra. I've heard people saying, no, we don't need Biafra. We have moved on. But we can have a confederal state. We can have an Eastern region. And the Igbos, I also respect their views. Some of us, we were not born in Igboland, but Igbo blood flows in us. Not too long ago, I said, okay, let me go to my village. So I had my guys, I said, let's enter the car. Let's drive. I want to feel the road. So we have driven from the southwest. When I got to Ihiala, I started feeling, I wasn't feeling myself anymore because I've entered, immediately I entered the bridge. I began to feel unnecessarily unconscious of the situation. I didn't like it. Immediately after the bridge, there's this sense of alert. I began to be very watchful. I said, I should be calmer here. But there was nothing I could do. I became alert. I was watching everybody. Somebody would not just pop out from the bush with a gun. But I also told myself, or die and I die, I must come home. After Hiala, My parents were already in the village waiting for me. So I needed to call to say, how do I move in? How do I come in? What road should I take? Should I go through Olu? No, I wanted to know because the information was that some boys were occupying some villages. And the easiest route to my village, luckily, I made that call because that was where I was planning to take. And when I called, everybody said, thank God. And they said, Umuoma have occupied the village. Ndu Umuoma have occupied, Umuchuku have occupied the village. I said, okay, if Umuchuku have occupied the village, how come the village is deserted? Because they said everybody have run away. And Umuoma are in the village. I said, it's a contradiction. I said, if they are Umuoma, then I should be able to drive in. The Umuoma should welcome me because Umuoma means good children, beautiful children. Umuchuku, God's children. But once they occupy, people desert the village. There's a contradiction there. Who are these Umuoma? Do you know them? But I entered anyway. Took our Mama Junction. Found my way through. It was also peaceful. I came out. Nothing happened. But throughout, I was in pensive mood. That's not how I want to feel. That is not a feeling I want to have. In fact, I should have the best feeling when I'm in that zone. But despite these feelings, I still move. I still move. I can't run away from there. So that brings me to this point. Let's reflect on these case studies. Even at some point, we've made all the investment to bring in a radio station. Because I felt the Igbo story is not intense, it's not well told. That the discussion of the Igbo question is not intense enough, that even the Igbo are not intensively telling the story. In fact, it wasn't Nnamdi Kanu that really gave vent to the Igbo story. So some of us felt, okay, there's a need for us to have a radio to discuss the Igbo question. We made all the investment, but at a point we developed cold feet. How will the message be received? But it's still a plan. Telling the Igbo question. Because I operate from Yoruba land. And I know I also tell the Yoruba question, the Yoruba history. It's so intense, and Yoruba scholars are writing every day. If you see the body of work on Yoruba history, with that body of work, I'm telling you, watch out for the Yoruba nation in the Nigerian state. Because their scholars are deliberate. We deal in books, I deal in books, so I have access. My collection, Yoruba history in my collection is so huge that if Yoruba children intensify their study of Yoruba history, watch out for them. I can see that Igbo scholars are not paying enough attention to Igbo history. Even in the midst of agitation, sometimes I'm asking myself, IPOB, where is the intellectual core of IPOB? Where is the intellectual core of IPOB? How powerful is their propaganda machinery? Or if IPOB is denying that it doesn't have a propaganda machinery, that means there's something weak about its system. Where is the research lab of IPOB? Where is the Igbo think tank? Because I know there is a massive Yoruba think tank. Igbo billionaires, what do they invest on? Because there are times I feel, if the Igbo really want Biafra, they can get it without even firing a shot. Because I've done this stuff, I've looked at the map, look at the huge population. Sometimes when I see even some Igbo people, when they say it's our turn to be president, I say, don't stop saying your turn. The Igbo nation is too powerful to say by turn. If you feel you want presidency, you go and grab it, take it. People who fought a war for 3 years, they are too powerful to beg. What have they not seen? They've seen death. They've come out of the valley of death. They have braved machine guns, armored tanks. They fought with their hands. If you read Madiebo said the day he made up his mind that he was going to, this battle, we were going to fight it, was in Enugu when the war started. They had no guns. But they were mobilizing to stop the Nigerian troops from coming in. That he saw Igbo men who were breaking stick. They were holding cutlasses, marching to go and face guys with machine gun. At that point, he knew that even as a general, he had no option, but they said, okay, let's fight. So after that experience, after the war, you bounced back and you played the victim. With that experience, after the Holocaust, the Jews bounced back. You want to dare the state of Israel? I also ask, after the first war, will it be proper to have another war in Igboland? After the destructive nature of the first war, should violence be an option again to attain an Igbo nation or a state of Biafra? I've read the horrors of the war. I've interviewed people on the war. I eat the war. I sing the war. Every day I'm searching for those who have experiences of the war. After the war, should anyone contemplate violence again in Igboland? What is the next option? After the science of the war, have you studied the science of the war? What Biafran researchers did? Why is Igboland still looking like a village? After the technological revolutions that they launched during the war, last year I took a trip to Aba. I went into Ariaria. I wasn't looking for the goods. I wanted to see what we could manufacture with our hands. I went to the shoe line. I wasn't impressed with what I saw. The finishing of the shoes were too poor. As I did the Aba made, that we can do better and sell to the world. But I also saw how they were struggling to produce, no electricity, no investment. How many Igbo billionaire is spending money on research on Igbo history, Igbo mathematics, Igbo language? I keep hearing no federal presence, What private presence is in Igbo land? Where are the private presence? The Igbo money, where is the Igbo money? Is it in building mansions? Are we building mines? I saw broken schools. Are you saying go and study the Igbo State Union before Nigeria's independence? Most of the schools in Igbo land were built by community efforts, not government efforts. I see mansions. He has built a big mansion. But the road to the mansion is unpaved. It's everywhere in Igbo land. It's unpaved. As if they can build these mansions, can't they come together and pave the roads? While I was going into a mango in Ohafia, it was a rainy season. Okay, Sunday I'll bring out the videos I saw in my exploration of Igboland. See what gully erosion is doing? Okay. It's just my personal reflections. Let's look at some case studies, and I'll open the lines again, and you make your intervention. I want to go to April. Let me go to 2021. Just to establish a point. I have talked about Operation Python Dance yesterday. 1 and 2. At some point, they called it the Dance of Peace. Buhari made a broadcast. Let's leave Buhari out of it. He's a dead man. To trace the violence that engulfed southeastern Nigeria in 2021 is to witness a region descending into our coordinated attacks, military reprisals, political recriminations, and a crisis of trust between the people and the state. The year began with the embers of discontent that had been smoldering since the military operations of the previous years. But it was in the early months of 2021 that these embers would erupt into a conflagration that would shake the foundations of the Nigerian Federation. In my interview with Achike Odenwa, he revealed to me that he had not visited his village for 4 years, a former governor, because his village is one of the epicenters of militant violence in Igboland. They've all run away. I hope they are returning now. So the violence of that year, I'm picking 2021 as a case study. The violence was not a single event, but a series of events, each feeding into the next, creating a circle of attack and reprisal that would leave hundreds dead, thousands displaced, and the entire southeast region teetering on the brink of chaos. The first major flashpoint came in February 2021, when Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State invited the military to intervene in Olu, a town that had become a crucible of violence between suspected members of Eastern Security Network, what the government described as the militant arm of the indigenous people of Biafra, and security forces. But IPOB says no. Unknown gunmen are not members of IPOB. According to Hope Uzodinma, intelligence reports indicated that militants were parading serious firepower in buses, and only the military could deal with such a threat. On February 18, 2021, the Nigerian Army launched a coordinated land and air operation against the operatives in the forest of Olu and Osu local government areas, destroying their camps and then causing devastations in Igboland. They launched a devastating show of force. The response from IPOB was immediate. It was incendiary. In a statement that would set the tone for the year to come, IPOB declared that the military raid marked the beginning of the Second Nigerian Civil War. I remember reporting that story. I remember going to the Southeast during that period. IPOB statements read, "The Nigerian military has at last brought war to Biafra land, supported by other security agencies, including police and the Department of State Services, DSS. They came with military jets, tanks, and heavy war equipment against us. Yes, the Second Nigeria-Biafra War has begun," IPOB concludes. The Olu offensive did not quell the violence. It merely displaced it. Throughout March of that year, attacks on security infrastructure escalated across the southeast. On the 31st of March, gunmen disrupted a town hall meeting hosted by Professor Charles Soludo, the former Central Bank governor and future governor of Anambra State, in his hometown of Isuofia. The attackers killed 3 policemen. Governor Willie Obiano, in a broadcast to the people of Anambra State, condemned the incident. And he did that in the strongest terms, warning that the continued targeting of security forces portended grave danger for the peace and security we have worked so hard to entrench in our dear states. End of quote. He urged all stakeholders to call for a stoppage of all forms of aggression against the police and security agencies in Anambra State. His words, however, would prove insufficient to stem the rising tide of violence. There are times I ask myself, since after the war, Igboland have been violent. At some point, the kind of criminals you see in Igboland, in places like Onitsha, Aba, at the point you hear Otokoto, the kind of violence. At the point we had Bakassi boys, primordial, as if we were living in ancient time. These are relics of the war. You could slaughter somebody on the street, a Bakassi boy, because you want to chase out criminals. I used to cringe. What has Igboland become? Different faces. Different faces. And it's important we understand IPOB. And that's why I've embarked on this journey. To understand IPOB. Learning and seeing what we can do to salvage a people who have gone through a lot. Sometimes it is easy to point fingers at the Nigerian state. And I'm saying The time has come that we start pointing fingers at ourselves. It is always easy to point fingers at the Nigerian state. But I'm also saying the time has come to start pointing fingers at ourselves. Because every solution is in the self. Those who change the world are those who look at themselves. Those who always blame others don't win. It is those who look inward, look at the self, that win. Okay, I still have more stories to tell. But at this point, I will open the line and take 3 calls, then go back to the point. Hello. Are you there?
Open the line and take 3 calls. Yes, I'm here.
All right, make your point.
Okay. Just let me put off my device. Yes, my name is Hilary Uzokwe.
We are listening.
Okay. Mazo Bilondewo.
Thank you.
Yeah. I am a member of IPOB. Yes. The story you told about Olu and the violence there was what Wada Jovista was trying to retell. Unfortunately, it is a long one, and she hadn't time enough to tell all that. But if she had actually landed, you will also know that what she said would tally with what the first caller today said, and that is that it is all the violence we saw in Igboland was with the complicence of the government. With regards to looking introspectively, the happenings of these few days has demonstrated amply that IPOB actually does a lot of auto-criticism. So we look inwards and then we move forward. I have only come to make just this comment. There was a Yoruba caller who tried to paint a picture of a beautiful Nigeria where all of us could live happily together. I wish I had spoken just immediately after him, because my question would have been for him to explain to me why the destruction, the targeting of Igbo business and property in Lagos, Yoruba land, the heart of Yoruba land. We have seen a lot of violence against the Igbos. You cannot register to vote. You cannot vote. If you vote for any other person other than the Yoruba candidate, will throw you into the ocean. We have seen all that, and he has the guts to come to tell us to forget Biafra. What the Yoruba is doing to us is actually gingering us to make us decisive that we cannot and we will not go back to that entity called Nigeria. Now, let me go to the core of my issue, actually. The question is, what is IPOB looking for? IPOB is asking for referendum, and this is a political tool. Why violence? Who brought in violence? Why? So the government has to answer this question. Referendum has no violence in it at all. Let them explain to us wherein comes violence in a request for referendum. That's just what I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Straight to the point. You know, I know we have a lot to say, but in a conversation like this, when you also hit the nail on the head, it helps. And I will also allow some particular callers to dominate the conversation. I'm also careful. And if I do, I won't even allow them to speak. Now, Gbenga, you are calling again. I'm not going to pick your call, except you promise to land in just 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, I was trying to.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. Yeah, my name is Benga. I'm calling from Dublin. Yeah, please, the people that are calling on the program, I just have to go and check online now that, okay, what is the position of the federal government as regards IPOB? Because I noticed that majority, because I'm raising this observation majorly for the safety of your program. Majority of the people that are calling are saying that they are a member of IPOB. And they stand as of today, because actually I think there was an appeal court judgment as of 2025 that still upheld the stance of the federal government that IPOB is a terrorist group. So for people to be calling on your program saying that it's like they are calling on your program and they are saying thank you, and they are saying that okay, they are a member of a terrorist group. They are a member of it. That's the position of the federal government. So we also have to be careful in that regard. That's number one. Number two, I did not appreciate what the last caller said. Even from your own submission, you can see you also stated the effort of the Yorubas in the struggle of Biafra, the role of Wole Soyinka. During the struggle of Biafra, Banjo was killed. A lot of Yoruba people. Okay, what do you say about the people that were mistaken for the Igbos, the Calabars, the Delta people, like the interview that you played that by General Alabi Sama, that people were mistaken for Igbos and they were killed. So how do you compensate for that? It was not only the Igbos might have suffered the most of the damages, but other parts of the country also suffered collateral damage as well. How do you compensate for that? And you cannot, and he said that Igbos cannot vote in Lagos. That is a big lie. Igbos voted in Lagos. You yourself, Edmond Obilu, you know that an Igbo man Igbo is not voting in, I'm from Ibadan, before coming to Dublin. Igbo man voted, Ekotedo, Mokola, all these places are dominated, Quincy, all these places are dominated by Igbos. Igbos vote in Lagos, they vote in Ibadan, they vote in the Southwest. So you cannot come here and tell me that Igbo man doesn't vote in the Southwest. That is a big lie. So, because it is not only the Igbos that are listening to this program, all we Yorubas too, other tribes too, even people that are not Nigerians are also listening to this because it's online that I'm hearing this program. So we should be mindful of what we say, and I understand that, just like you said, there is a proverb in my language that a talking drum has two sides. The side that is faced to you is your own truth. There can be 2, 3, 4, 5 truths. Everybody have their own truth. Gowon have his own truth. Obasanjo have his own truth. General Isama have his own truth. Even me as a Yoruba man, my father told me some stories about dealing with Igbo people, this based on his own experience. You too also narrated your own experience when you went to the East. Okay, are you not an Igbo person? You also narrated your experience when you went to the East. So everybody have their own realities, their own truth about this thing. So you should not see it as if, and if you want the country to break today, I still retain and still, maintain my. If you can only renegotiate our coexistence, that Nigeria is going to break and say that the Igbo people should go, I think they should just take that. I don't see it as anything that is happening.
All right.
I don't see it as anything that is happening.
Thank you.
The only thing we can do for our coexistence, we can renegotiate our coexistence. That's the best that I see that can happen.
Thank you.
And people, and I don't appreciate people calling they're a member of Biafra. The federal government labeled IPOB as a terrorist group. We should be mindful. We should be security conscious of that. I'm just calling your attention to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now let me make a point. Though I'm not in Nigeria at the moment, but I am based in the heart of Yoruba land. We all have our experiences. I am based in the heart of Yoruba land. I live and work in Ibadan. My studios are in Ibadan. I did my youth service in Ibadan. I don't know about your experience, but I want to tell you my own experience of Yoruba land. I was born in Benin City. I went to university in Edo State. So I speak Edo. And I am connected to Igboland. I'm not that person that was born outside Igboland. I don't know Igboland. I know it well. My family go to the village. I was that child. I go to the village like twice in a year. There's a festival in my village during June, July. Oh, I wear masquerade. As a child, I wear masquerade in Igbo land. I go to elders meeting. So I know Igbo land, especially where I'm from. I'm not a stranger. So when I also grew up at the point I became so busy, I didn't go to the village for some time. And I can speak the language well. So I have the Igbo experience. I have the Edo experience. Edo flows in my blood too. Born there, primary school there, secondary school there, university there. Then youth service took me to Yoruba land. And I decided to settle there. And I can tell you confidently that I'm one of the most popular broadcasters in Yoruba land. Yeah, these days we do online. But before online, we were doing radio regulated by the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission. On Yoruba radio, I worked with Splash FM, the most popular radio station in the Southwest, before I resigned to go and establish my company. But I still broadcast on Splash FM every Saturday. On Splash, my discussion of Biafra did not start today. Confidently, I will take the civil war to radio. I will play Ojuku. Not once, not twice, consistently. What I'm doing today, I didn't start it now. I've been discussing Biafra from Yoruba radio. It is owned by a Yoruba man, not an Igbo man. And nobody has ever tried to stop me for one day. Yes, there might be some persons who don't like my guts. But I have never been oppressed. And I cannot be oppressed anyway. I cannot be oppressed. I don't accept all those kind of things. I speak boldly on the Igbo question. I speak boldly on the Fulani question, on the Yoruba question, on the Nigerian question. So what's the point I'm making? When it comes to me, I don't understand what is called Yoruba segregation against Igbo. I don't know it. It has never happened to me. That is not to say every Yoruba man likes me. And there are some Igbo people that don't even like me. So you won't hear me talk about Yoruba segregation. Because I have successfully operated in Yoruba land. Nobody have stopped me from voting. I have covered it. Yes, we saw what happened in Lagos, in some areas. But that is not to state categorically that Ndi Igbo didn't vote. Peter Obi won Lagos State. So when we carry this narrative, we should categorize it very well. Because if you go to places like Iwo Road in Ibadan, it is dominated by Igbo businesses. Sometimes I ask myself, what will happen? If you go to places in Bodija, Igbo men have built houses, mansions. There were many Igbo children that don't even know, can't speak Igbo. They are Yoruba, they are doing well. If you go to University of Ibadan, Igbos are deans of faculty, HODs. So my experience of Nigeria, I'm not a victim. I cannot be victimized. I've attended University of Ibadan, different degrees. So I don't have that experience, you can see. So if I'm writing my autobiography, you won't hear me castigate the Yoruba. And if I won't castigate a Yoruba man, it's not to castigate him because he's a Yoruba. It's because we differ in opinion. And there are Igbo people I differ with. I have friends courts across the country. And those who know me as a man who projects the Igbo question. And that's why my master's degree thesis was titled The Igbo Question. I'm only saying, let's be careful. Let's be careful. Yes, we might have something against other ethnic groups. I don't have. I don't have those opinions. Even the Fulani, I'm trying to understand them. But I have something against the Fulani terrorist. The way I have something against the Yoruba terrorist or the Igbo terrorist. I'm making this point so that the program does not descend into Igbo-Yoruba contestations. At that point, I will stop opening the line. I'll move to other subjects. I avoid such talks. And I don't bring up my children that way. I give them the Yoruba exposure. I give them the international exposure, the Igbo exposure. Can Biafra be achieved on the basis of antagonizing other tribes? Let me take this call. Hello. Are you there? I can't hear you.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you now.
This is Mazo Basi calling again. And once again, I am a member of IPOB.
You keep breaking. You fade, you come. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, make your point. You're freezing. You're freezing. All right. Let's take this call. Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. You are clear. You are loud.
Okay. Yeah, good evening from here. My name is Chuku. Yes, sorry, I'm hearing from the other side. So, anyway, I just have a little thing to say in regards to the first part of the statement of the last caller. Sorry, I'm just joining the program, not quite too long. Where he stated that IPOB is prescribed and you are not meant to be mingling with IPOB. So, what I want to say, the misconception of prescription Nigeria made against IPOB has been something many people has refused to investigate. As far as the prescription is concerned, it remains illegal and unlawful because the only basis such prescription was made on IPOB is on an expert order. There wasn't any court hearing, there wasn't any argument, counter argument, or even ruling. It's just the Nigerian state hearing and listening to themselves without inviting IPOB for examination or for their own opinion. And the last person that spoke stated that he is from, he resides in Ireland. He should ask himself, why is IPOB operating freely where he resides in Ireland, all over Europe, America, Asia, Australia, as a result of this illegal prescription, because the whole world understands the basis of such illegal prescription. And that is why all over the world, IPOB has continued to operate. In Ireland, where that last caller resides, every year, every 17th of March, Ireland always invites IPOB to their biggest event, which they call St. Patrick's Day. IPOB is always there, showcasing who we are and what we believe in. This time, everywhere, we have had engagements and interaction and relationship with the governments of the whole world. There hasn't been any issue of questioning or of any kind of eyebrow raised against IPOB's operations all over the world, apart from Nigeria. Up till today, since the prescription in 2017, the Nigerian state has not even invited IPOB for hearing or for anything. So as far as we know and as we concern, the prescription on IPOB remains illegal. And that is why the rest of the world has not agreed to that. So we are not terrorists. I am an IPOB member. And besides, you cannot prescribe a people, because as far as IPOB is, we are a people. You cannot just come in a community and prescribe the whole community or a town. So the prescription is illegal, is unlawful, and it has not stand anywhere in any part of the world except in Nigeria's corrupt state system. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I want to play this interview and we'll look at it. Then I'll play Charles Soludo inaugural address again. Then we analyze it. We'll take this call. Hello. Hello, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Yeah. Good morning, Edmond.
I greet you.
Thank you for all that you do. My name is Toluani. I'm calling from United Kingdom. Thank you for this conversation. I really hope that people are Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, can I go on?
Yes,
Can I
go
on, yeah?
Yes, go on.
Yeah, so I'm very happy of what you're doing. I mean, a little bit of just giving you of your flowers. You are one of the reasons why I started reading books a lot about Nigerian history. When I hear you on State Affairs on Saturday, and also your commentary, I remember you conducting debates for governorship candidates in your state back in the days and asking them very hard questions in UI and all that. It was quite good to see somebody take them to take them to the corners like that. However, on this conversation that you are having, I really hope that people that are listening can be able to learn from what you're saying. So from the perspective of somebody who is by birth Yoruba, who has also read a lot about the history of Nigeria, like I said, been inspired by your leadership on this conversation. I'm just going to say some perspective. The first thing is the Igbo race as a traveling people, hardworking, very daring, and very enterprising and all that, trying to seek political power in the midst of people who are feudal. I'm Yoruba. Yorubas may not look feudal on the outside, but when they are under attack, I mean, Edmond, you are a historian. People resort to people that they see that are up there. Just look at the Yorubas during Biafra War and during the Abiola struggle, how everyone just came under intellectuals and the royal fathers. For an Igbo nation that operates by, the elders council, the age groups and all that, where they have autonomy in almost every community, it is politically immiscible to see that happen. This is where I'm headed. Do I believe that Nigeria is over mature for an Igbo presidency and leadership? Absolutely. But I don't think the way it's being, approached, there's no how it's not going to scale. This may not sound nice. When information is being spoken out, people hear it at different levels. I used to be very tolerant of, the ideas of, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu when it started in those early 2010s, 2015s and all that. Now, as I try to sit on the fence, but when I hear some things being all that people, Yoruba elders and Yoruba intellectuals who perhaps had nothing to do directly, it will be difficult for me to sit on the fence and say, no, wait a minute, what this guy is saying, if this is heard by people who can't think, it can lead to, I could lose my life traveling the East because I'm just Yoruba. Do you understand? So which is why I think that I truly, truly believe that there needs to be, you asked a question some hours ago, minutes ago, you said, what is the intellectual base of IPOB? That is very crucial. You are engaging political power in the midst of unrepentant feudalists. Edmond, by the advice of the books you said we should read, I read a book that shows that Usman Fodio was a great-great-grandchild of, Ahmadu Bello was Usman Fodio's great-great-grandchild. And in the First Republic, he merely ceded power to Tafawa Balewa to go to Lagos because he didn't want to go. Now, take that political setup of the North now, superimpose it today on today's Nigeria. Nothing has changed. Nothing. It's still the feudal nature of things, the Kaduna Mafia, how they just want to hold on to power for sake of power without any benefit to their people. So this is my appeal to everyone. Let's calm the nerves. If I say I feel what it is to have gone through all of this, I'll be lying. But I truly, truly believe that this can be gone about a different way. I mean, I believe that Igbos deserve to operate their own nation. However, my concerns around that, as a historian, is the fact that Igbos don't have a central leadership. They don't have kings. They operate by, the share power equally, egalitarian setup, and one of the best in the world. How they would fledged as a nation, this is what I think. I think it's going to set back the minorities in those Igbo majorities. It may take a while for them to come together, which is why it makes me think that everyone may be better off in a bigger Nigeria, but things have to be done in a calmer way, more strategic way. I'm very happy you are coming on board. You are a seasoned intellectual. If this information is passed across the ranks, things can be done in a different way. Please, please, and please, let's calm the nerves. Let's understand people you are working with. There are Igbo men that I used to respect a lot because of the way they've gone about dealing across Niger. People like Rochas Okorocha, people like this other man, Augusto Kalu. But among the young Igbo people, they are called Okoro Hausa, they are called funny names. These are men that have handshakes across the Niger. They can easily go to those journeys for you. So rather than pulling out people that necessarily don't align with what you think, I think it should be rethought as a people and done rightly. I believe we have one of the smartest people by the way the Igbos are naturally. They don't take no for an answer. They like to engage. They like to find what is right for. If you see anywhere where people's rights are being fought for without caring who is high, who is low, they are Igbos. But this aggression, my uncle fought in the war on the Nigerian side. You know, he fought in the war. They grew up in Ondo State and they were mobilized to the war and all that. The story tells me about it. The man still has the trauma till tomorrow. So let's calm the aggression. Let's watch folks who are managing information online and all that. Let's re-strategize. Let's have an intellectual base that is assessing engagement and know how to get about it. Thank you very much for what you are doing. I've been watching the mic, but I saw you were on. This Edmond, friend from way back in Ibadan. I always listen to you. Even since moving here to the UK, I remembered your one of your friends that passed on, Elder Koyi Ladili. You love the man so much. I understood how you went about that round of losing him and other people that are key listeners. So please keep on doing what you are doing. Continue telling these stories. Let's hope that people across the information cadre can understand how to engage and that we can have top nationals that work for everybody in Nigeria and everybody can optimize their potentials. Thank you very much for what you do, Edmond. God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
It's already morning on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been following your conversation. I still want to appreciate you as usual to have opened this great conversation about IPOB. People tend to pay more attention to a neutral platform. When it talks about IPOB especially, and also the Biafra quest, considering the fact that people believe that it is a neutral ground for engagement. Compared to when it has to be an IPOB platform, people seem to be a little more scared to engage because they don't even know what they expect. When they engage in an IPOB platform. So it's a very wonderful thing you have done for the past few weeks, because we'll be following it in the last few weeks, especially on this topic of IPOB. And there is a very, very interesting question that you asked about the IPOB intellectual room, where probably you have intellectuals who make decisions, who formulate policies and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, IPOB is formed in a way that you have, group of individuals who are within the directorate who actually form part of the institution per se, even though the institution have been in a way undermined, which have led to some of the internal crises also that we are experiencing, because this institution of the directorate was actually created but being undermined by its own leader. And I made this remark as well sometime in the past, and IPOB have taken a different dimension in making sure that this internal structure is being strengthened and better institution formed to serve its purpose better. And these directorates are a group of people who brainstorms on, using lots of research materials in decision making, intellectual gathering, to be able to make sure that they navigate every daily challenge. And because, like I said, the undermining of this institution is the reason we've seen also the suspended IPOB leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. His undermining is the reason he was even apprehended in Kenya, because this particular body, through security information, warned that he do not step his foot in any African country. So if he had respected this body, if he had respected that security report, maybe the story would have been different. So when it comes to this question of the IPOB intellectual room, we have people who understand global political dynamics. They understand how to maneuver, looking at also history of other freedom fighters in the past, and also these are people who have the knowledge of the Nigerian system and its operation. And these are the people who have also been able to a very large extent, saved a lot of lives. Today, Simon Ekpa is in Finland prison because of the the crime he committed, especially in Igboland. This particular intellectual board were able to curtail the amount of damage that would have been done, because at some point Simon Ekpa was like to be given the opportunity to be part of this to be part of this body, but they ran his profile and discovered that he lacks the discipline to belong to this body. In fact, this same body even denied him the possibility to have a slot on Radio Biafra London, because they were able to identify the risk, the danger he poses through his behaviors. They were able to anticipate, they were proactive in identifying that he lacked the discipline to be part of what IPOB is doing. So I believe that a lot of people who are conversant or who are very close to the struggle understand what I'm talking about. But for the fact that a lot of people are not too close, they will not see the job these men have done. So without wasting much of your time, Mr. Obilo, I can tell you that IPOB has a very strong intellectual institution that handles daily affairs. That is the reason the Biafra struggle is even still standing today, because despite all the effort Nigeria government have made in bringing IPOB down, they have not been able to succeed effectively. Just like the analysis you made about Chike Doziem, you gave a very clear analysis of how Chike Doziem went to court and defeated Nigeria and removed that individual tag that was placed on him as a terrorist. That takes a lot of intellectual calculation, So it's important that we point this out so that it doesn't look as if IPOB are just a bunch of riffraffs who do not know their left from their right. We admit to a very large extent that certain things would have been done better, but notwithstanding, corrections are also possible in process. And whenever mistakes are made, it gives even a more better opportunity for corrections also to be made. So, Mazio, I want to say thank you very much. Let me leave it at that. I really appreciate the time given me.
Thank you. Now this book, look at this book. Ojukwu, Exile, Diplomacy and Survival by Kanayo Isinulo. Let's listen to this interview with Kanayo Isinulo, the author of this book. He was a personal assistant to Ojukwu.
What happened in Kirikiri?
Well, they put me in if you like, a room, solitary confinement. You can't see me. My dad came, sent a lot of his brothers and extended family. They didn't see me. It was in one of my uncle's trip that somebody referred him to Chief Gani Fawemi. Took him to his chambers, then at Surulere, and narrated what happened. My uncle didn't deny that I wasn't with Ojukwu in exile. He didn't. But he said there is nothing this young man did that has offended the law. I'm not a lawyer, but let Gani handle it. Gani gave money to my uncle to enter Chidebere. Now it is the young motors and all. These ones are young. Chidebere then. Gani gave my uncle money to go back to the east. Leave everything for me. Took him to his chambers. He made some statements, signed some papers. That's all. Gani took it. It was Gani that forced them to take me to IPOB hospital. Reluctantly. I was limping. It's in the book. I was limping. I couldn't walk straight. Heavy arthritis. Elijah Kamsalem refused to take me to hospital. Gani pressured. I was taken. Dr. Ishola Abudu, professor then, handled my case. Gani went to court and said, Abudu, come and tell us what you are curing this young man of. He issued a statement. Gani took it to court. It's in the Daily Times publication. Produced, detained newsman.
Gani was the arrowhead in the struggle.
He was the arrowhead. That was why when I saw him lying in state at his residence at Antony, dead, I don't know who came for that burial that didn't know that somebody was not just crying, but mourning. I couldn't believe that Gani is lying in a box.
You dedicated this book?
I dedicated the whole book. Even if I'm going to write a second one, I'm going to dedicate it to Gani Fawemi. His type is rare. Very uncommon man.
He didn't think you were an Igbo man.
No. That's why when some people talk about tribalism, Igbo do this, Hausa do this, I keep laughing. My best friends are Yorubas.
Even in your book, it struck me, and I want to read. I want to read from your book. You said, as I pointed out earlier on,
yes,
the real battle for my release from detention,
yes,
began with the late Gani Fawemi in full command.
In full command.
Amnesty International had already deployed its global network to devastating effects on the vicious Gowon regime.
Exactly.
The growing notoriety of the regime provided Amnesty International and other bodies, including the international media, the moral high ground for the effective prosecution of the case for my freedom. General Ojukwu was pushing from Cote d'Ivoire and making use of all his diplomatic contacts.
Exactly.
But Gani Fawehinmi was the commander-in-chief in the struggle for my release.
May so rest in peace.
One can now see clearly why I detest and condemn tribalism and any form of ethno-sectionalism in all ramifications and shapes.
Hey, you got it.
It is most unfortunate that the twin vices have taken solid roots in our society today.
Yes.
Just take a look at the persons, all critical intellectuals and professionals that assembled themselves without any financial prompting or payment or inducement in my defense, not minding, as it were, the obvious risk that the brutal Lagos regime was capable of unleashing on them.
Exactly.
You mentioned their names. Gani Fawehinmi.
Yes.
Olu Onogorowa. Tai Solarin.
Tai.
Wole Soyinka.
That's it.
All Yoruba men.
All Yoruba people. I sent a copy to Professor Wole Soyinka through Yemi Ogumbi.
They fought for you.
He did. All of them.
You came to Nigeria, you went to Tai Solarin.
Yes.
On many occasions, Ojukwu sent you to sort out Wole Soyinka.
Yes.
At some point, Soyinka had to fly to Abidjan.
Yes.
To meet Ojukwu.
Yes.
Are you there? That is Kanayo Esinulo, personal assistant to Ojukwu. You know, while Ojukwu was in exile, that is why books like this are very important. Ojukwu was in exile in Cote d'Ivoire after the war. But he was still running things in Nigeria. He still kept his contact with his men in Biafra. It was Kanayo Esinulo that he was sending. He was the one going all around delivering Ojukwu's messages. He was the one sneaking around. He was Ojukwu's man moving around, bringing in messages. So at some point, he didn't know that the Nigerian security agencies were monitoring all his movement. So under Gowon, on his last trip, they nabbed him. And they put him in prison for about 3 years. So the story he was telling there, that those who fought for his release, who stood by him, were Yoruba men. That's the story he told in that interview. Watch the full interview. This book is a classic book. Ojukwu did not write a comprehensive account, but his guys wrote and are still writing. I intend to have a part 2 interview with Kanayo Esinulo, because by the time of that interview, I have not fully read this book and digested it. Yes, I read it. It was in a rush. But I've read it again now. I've read it about 3 times. And I want to have a part 2 with him. These are men who slept with Ojukwu, who ate with Ojukwu. He was among those who escaped with Ojukwu from Biafra. He was about 22, 23 then. They left from Uli Airport. Okay, let me round off this class, and I hope I've been able to make some points. I've also learned some lessons. Let me draw our attention to the crescendo of violence in Igboland in 2021. It was April 5th, 2021. A date that would be seared into the memory of the Southeast. In the early hours of that Monday morning, gunmen operating with no fewer than 10 vehicles and armed with sophisticated weaponry, what did they do? They launched a coordinated assault on the Owerri Custodial Center and the Imo State Police Command headquarters. The attackers overwhelmed the security guards with dynamite and heavy firepower, freeing more than 1,000 prisoners from the correctional facility. They freed additional suspects from the police command. They danced and sang solidarity songs before retreating, leaving behind a scene of unimaginable devastation. The immediate aftermath of the April 5th attack was competing narratives and political recriminations. The police, through its force public relations officer, Frank Mba, quickly attributed the violence to the Eastern Security Network of IPOB, claiming that investigations had identified the militants as members of the proscribed group. But Governor Hope Uzodinma, however, offered a different interpretation. Speaking on Channels Television on April 7, the governor exonerated IPOB from the attacks, insisting that aggrieved politicians were behind the violence. It's important we go back to Hope Uzodinma's interview on Channels Television, where he said, "It is not IPOB."
Their tactics is that they try to identify grievances of people in a particular area. If it is Imo State and probably there are some IPOB people who are not happy, they hire hoodlums from outside Imo State. They bring them in pretending to be IPOB, and they commit this crime and they they go away. So it is not about IPOB. Yes, we agree. We have aggrieved IPOB members, but I can tell you, those who are doing this destruction, most of them were brought from outside Imo State.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
My heart bleeds to see and hear about our youth dying in senseless circumstances. Every criminal gang today, kidnappers, wicked murderers, arsonists, rapists, thieves, all now claim to be freedom fighters. Criminality cannot be sugar-coated. This must stop. All the stakeholders must now review both the narrative and the action plan. For starters, I totally endorse the recent statement of March 7th this year by the joint body of Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers and Bishops and Archbishops on the peace and conflict resolution, requesting for a tripartite discussion between them, the presidency, and the Southeast governors to deal with the conflicts in the Southeast, especially in relation to Nnamdi Kanu and the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB and the Eastern Security Network. There is no conflict that dialogue in good faith cannot resolve. To the IPOB, ESN, and MASOB, as well as the disparate armed groups in the forest, It is time to interrogate both the purpose and the means of your campaign. To the politicians playing politics with insecurity, you are riding a tiger. The current trajectory is a road to desolation. Let us get around the table and talk. Let the elite in the closet come out and let's debate our future and forge a consensus. The conspiracy of silence by the elite and some of the community leaders must end. If you see something, say something, or do something. Securing Igboland and Nigeria must be our collective responsibility. Let those in the forests come out, surrender your guns, and let's work together to rehabilitate and empower you to contribute positively to peace and prosperity of our homeland. A significant part of our state economy is powered by artisans, keke drivers, vulcanizers, petty traders, bricklayers, women frying akara, and all those who depend on daily toil and sweat. Every day there is a sit at home. These poor masses lose an estimated 19.6 billion in terms of lost income in Anambra State alone. Due to the protracted breakdown of law and order, businesses are relocating outside the Igboland, and there is growing unemployment, and traders who used to come to shop in Onitsha, Aba, etc., are going elsewhere. Who is losing? By forcing our children, the future of Igboland, to stay at home instead of being in school, while even the critically sick people, including pregnant women, cannot go to hospital on the days you declare sit at home, we are harming our future. I hereby challenge any of the disparate groups that claim that it is not part of the senseless killings and kidnappings to step out and show leadership by joining hands with us to do something about it. If you love our homeland, there is no place for bloodshed. Our Lord Jesus Christ admonished us in Matthew 26, verse 52, quote, "Put your sword back in its sheath, for all who live by the sword will die by the sword." In the traditional religion, the land places a curse upon those who spill the blood of the innocent. For me, ladies and gentlemen on the line, this issue is very personal to me and a very emotional one. My mother Mbwafo died during the Civil War. Her last born, Chukwuemeka, died during the war. My father bore a bullet inside of him for many years. My elder brother at 16 was in the boys' company, such that myself, the second, at 8, I became the man of the house with all the men at the war front. My uncles, cousins, etc., died during the war. This is 2022, and there are certainly far better ways to protest than shedding the blood of the innocent or resorting to criminality. This is why I call on all of us today to join hands with me to execute the real agenda, a livable and prosperous homeland of opportunities and jobs for our youth while maximizing the benefits of a united Nigeria, Africa. With Ohanese's estimate that some 11.6 million Igbos live in the north and over 7 million in Lagos state alone, and over 70% of our non-land assets scattered all over Nigeria and the world, we need Nigeria and Nigeria needs us. We need Africa and the world, and they also need us. Yes, we have had every genuine agitation for fairness, justice, equity, and equality in the Nigerian Federation. No, we refuse to turn our homeland into a crime scene and all manner of criminality. No group has ever succeeded in any struggle in history by turning the sword against themselves. I promise to work hard with other governors and leaders in the Southeast and others to take your agitations to the table of all Nigeria, and we hope to bargain for a win-win solution for all Nigeria. With good faith and hard work by all parties, I am convinced that justice, peace, and order will return to Anambra State and the Southeast within the shortest possible time.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
That is Charles Soludo in 2022. That's his inaugural address as the governor of Anambra State. With that address, we end this edition of the presentation. I'll be on tomorrow, and it is another subject. Tomorrow, we are planning to treat the Zaki Biam massacre, connect it to Odi, and connect it to the Niger Delta. So join me tomorrow, same time, on this platform for another edition of State Affairs. Thank you. Thank you for being there. I have a script here. It is an unfinished script on this subject. And having listened to your contribution, my research team will go back, sit down, incorporate your contribution into this write-up, and someday it's going to come out as a book. That is why even sometimes I'm very patient to listen to what you're saying. Because you are responding to the issue. And it will be important to capture these responses into the script. Here, we already have about 35 pages. And by the time we are done with this work, incorporating your feedback, we should be able to produce materials that children will read. Even before the work will be released, we'll put it out there, like your critique. You critique the work, we go back, we look at it, some of the points you have raised, improve on our work, and then come out with a work. Even when the book is out, when it is critiqued again, we can come out with another edition. That is research work. Thank you. Thank you for being there. I am Edmund Obilo. I appreciate you. From here, I say good night.